Everyone knows Methuselah as the oldest man to ever live. He died at the age of 969 years, becoming the oldest man to ever live. He was born to Enoch, one of the famous people in the Bible. Enoch's life was characterized by his walk with God. He walked so closely with God that God took him from the earth. Not much was said about Methuselah's relationship with God, and though he lived much longer than his father, there was not much that was recorded about his life. The only details recorded about his life were the children he gave birth to. It may be safe to say that his life was an average one, even though it was a long one. During the era he was born in, many people lived extremely long lives. This was before the time when God shortened the lifespan of man. However, the most striking thing about him apart from his age is what happened the year he died. This is also connected to the meaning of his name. The name Methuselah has been given different meanings based on the root words which form the name. One of these translations is when he is dead, it shall be sent. The question then is, what shall be sent? Some scholars believe it to be the judgment that would be sent, and they have good reasons to. By calculating his age and that of his grandson Noah, we would find out that the year Methuselah died was the year of the flood that destroyed the earth. Genesis chapter 5 verses 21 to 29 says, when Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. And after he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived 365 years. Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. And after he became the father of Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Methuselah lived 969 years, and then he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he had a son. He named him Noah and said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." This account shows that Methuselah was the son of Enoch and the grandfather of Noah, but it did not stop there. It also shows that he died the year of the flood. Methuselah was 187 years old when he gave birth to Lamech. Lamech was 182 years old when he gave birth to Noah, and Genesis chapter 7 verse 6 tells us Noah was 600 years old when the flood came. By adding all these years together, we would have 969 years, which was Methuselah's age when he died. There have been different controversies concerning whether the flood took his life or he died before the flood. If he had died in the flood, then he would have been part of the wicked generation that God wiped out, but if he had not, many would believe him to be a righteous man whom God took away before he destroyed the world. One fact we know for sure is that Methuselah died the year of the flood. The Bible recorded in Genesis chapter 6 that the sons of God took daughters of men as wives, and they gave birth to Nephilim, giants who were renowned men. It was also around this time that God was grieved by the wickedness of humans and the evil in their hearts. When God made all things in Genesis chapter 1, they were good. God delighted in his creation, but to see the people he made to be good not only have fallen into sin, but also become so wicked must have caused God's heart a lot of pain. This must have been so painful for him because the Bible records in Genesis chapter 6, verse 6 that the Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain. This was when God made the decision to destroy man and all the animals on earth, and also the birds of the air. The wickedness in the world must have been great for God to decide to wipe out all living creatures on land. But even when Adam and Eve had sinned by disobeying God in the Garden of Eden, God did not immediately kill them. He only sent them out of the Garden of Eden. However, Noah found grace in the sight of God, and he and his family were the remnant God kept. God decided to wipe off the whole earth and begin on a new slate, but he chose Noah to be the beginning of a new generation of men on earth. The presence of the Nephilim would be removed, and the people who had no fear of God and were painfully wicked would also be wiped off. God spoke to Noah, telling him of the coming end of the world as he knew it. Just like a friend, God told Noah of the violence in the earth and the fact that he would destroy it. After telling Noah this, God gave Noah specific instructions to make an ark. It was to be made of gopher wood and with different rooms. Genesis chapter 6 verses 15 to 16 says, "This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Make a roof for it and finish the ark to within 18 inches of the top. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks." God did not leave anything to chance but gave Noah the exact details of how the ark should look to withstand the flood that was coming. He also gave him instructions about those he was to let into the ark. He was to take his wife, his sons, and their wives into the ark, animals, and food. God gave him an exact template of what he wanted to do, and Noah obeyed. It must have looked very funny to other people who lived at that time to see Noah building an ark in preparation for a flood. The Bible had no previous record of rainfall before this flood, so it is possible that they never saw rain before that time, and even if they had seen rain, they had never seen a flood powerful enough to wipe off all of humanity and all animals. Some of them might have been laughing at Noah and pointing fingers at him. Others may have said that he had lost his mind. He may have lost many friends in that season, but Noah still chose to obey God. He built the ark according to the pattern that God had given him and chose to believe that what God had said to him was true. It would have been easy to allow doubts in that moment, but he did not. Noah had faith in the word of God, and his life was saved because of it. Like Hebrew chapter 11 verse 7 says, "By faith Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. By his faith he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that comes by faith." God was not done with yet. At the right time he asked Noah and his family to move into the ark. Noah was also to take 7 of each clean animal. These were animals that were considered ritually clean in the Bible, like the ox, the sheep, the goat, and others. Noah must have looked strange when gathering these animals, but since they were regarded as clean animals, it may not have looked too odd. It would not have been the same for the unclean animals, which he was to take 2 of each. He also gathered birds of the air into the ark. On the 17th day of the 2nd month of Noah's 600th year on earth, water came from under the earth and the sky and flooded the earth. The rain fell for 40 days straight, but they were kept safe because they were in the ark. God cared so much about him and all that were in the ark, so much that he shut them in himself. He protected them even after they had obeyed his instructions. Can you imagine it? An ark floating over water while the whole surface of the earth is submerged. The mountains must have been submerged too, because people and animals would have hidden otherwise. Everywhere was covered with water. Life was destroyed on the earth, but a remnant remained in an ark. Such a flood had never been seen on the earth, and all animals and people on earth died. There was no way to have survived except if they were in the ark. The water was so much that it lifted the ark above the earth. The earth was completely covered in water for 150 days. It must have been difficult to remain in the ark for that time, but the ark was God's way of protecting Noah and his family. It must have been a tough number of days for Noah and his family because of the animals that accompanied them. Even if they fought, they had no place to avoid one another, but all had to endure facing one in the ark. This was how hard staying in the ark must have been for every one of them, especially when the knowledge that they were never going to see the earth the way it was before. No matter the extent of civilization they may have experienced before the flood, it would no longer exist after the flood because those who organized them would all be dead. They must have found this scary, along with the fact that they would have lost friends in the flood and even some family. Even though they were saved from the destruction that all of Earth faced, they still had to go through the pain of loss and change. After the flood had gone on for a long time, God remembered Noah and every person and animal that was in the ark, so he caused a wind to go over the earth and reduce the water on the surface of the earth. Rain also stopped and water stopped coming from the ground. The flood had previously been caused not only by rainfall from heaven, but also by water from underground or the fountains of the deep. Now God shut both sources of the water that led to the flood. After the end of 150 days, the waters had reduced even though it was not completely gone. It took a while for the water to totally disappear though, so they still spent quite some time in the ark. On the 7th month, the ark rested on a mountain. By the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen. Finally, at the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark. They must have struggled so much with staying in the ark with no windows open for the period of the flood. From the window he sent out a raven to find out how dry the earth was, who went around the earth until the waters had dried up from the earth. Then he sent a dove to find out if water had dried from the face of the ground. The dove found no place to rest her foot, since there was still water on the ground, and returned to the ark. After waiting for 7 more days, he sent the dove out again. This time the dove returned, but with evidence that the water had gone down a lot. It came back with an olive leaf. Noah waited another 7 days and then finally sent the dove out again, and the dove did not return to him. In Noah's 601st year on earth, on the first day of the first month, the waters finally dried up from the ground, and Noah removed the covering on the ark and looked at the ground, seeing that it was finally dry. However, Noah did not leave the ark yet, not until he received God's instruction to leave the ark on the 27th day of the second month. He waited until God said it was okay for him to leave the ark before leaving. This is why Noah's lifestyle of faith and obedience is really admirable. Not only did he trust God and obey him concerning building an ark and going into it with his family when he had never seen a flood, but he also waited for God's instruction before leaving the ark. So Noah left the ark with his family and all the animals that had followed him into the ark. Noah immediately after getting out of the ark built an altar to God and took some of every clean animal and bird to offer as a burnt offering to God. God, on smelling the offering, made a promise in his heart and said that he would no longer curse the ground because of man, nor destroy all living things as he had done. The end of that promise is in Genesis chapter 8, verse 22, which says, "As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease." God blessed Noah and his sons, telling them to be fruitful and multiply, just as he had told Adam and Eve in the beginning. It was also after this time that man stopped being vegetarian, because God gave them animals and green herbs as food to eat, but he gave specific instructions on how to eat the animals. He told them not to eat animals with the blood in it, stating that in the blood is the life of the animals. After all this, God made a covenant with Noah and his sons and every living creature. This was the first covenant after the flood had destroyed the world. He promised that the flood would no longer destroy all living things, and there would no longer be a flood to destroy the earth. The token and evidence of the covenant that God made to no longer destroy the earth by flood was the rainbow. The rainbow was to remind all of humanity that God has promised to never destroy the earth by flood, no matter what happens in the future. The rainbow was to remind God of this covenant to never again destroy the earth by flood. Noah lived up to 950 years before dying. His children populated the earth and gave birth to many children of their own till the earth was once again filled with people. In the days of Noah right before the flood, people were not aware of the incoming destruction. Many did not know that judgment was coming, and in fact, many probably expected that something so drastic would ever happen. This is why Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24, verses 37 to 39, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." Everyone was going about their daily business, completely unaware that a life-changing event was coming. No one was prepared to meet their end in such a way, and only Noah and his family, who found grace in God's sight, were able to escape the destruction. If many other people had known, perhaps they would have also tried to enter the ark to be saved. God did not just cause the flood to happen because he wanted to wipe out all of humanity. No, he caused the flood to happen because he saw the extent to which humanity had become corrupted. Their bloodline was corrupted because of the Nephilim, and they departed from the original reason they were created. Humanity was so bad that there was no way to rescue them from their wickedness at that time. It was also because of this that the lifespan of human life was reduced to 120 years. The only option was to wipe away all people and keep only the elect. It is interesting that it was Noah and his family that escaped the destruction. Why is that? This is because Noah, while being the son of Lamech, the grandson of Methuselah, was also the great-grandson of Enoch. In every generation in the Old Testament, God found a man who had a heart for him, and Enoch was this man. At a time when men lived very long lives and saw many generations after them, Enoch walked so closely with God that God did not wait for him to die but took him away. He had such a close relationship with God. This relationship must have been passed on through the generations. Although the Bible did not say much about Methuselah or Lamech's relationship with God, it is seen from the life of Noah that although he was in a wicked generation, he genuinely loved God and was a righteous man. Interestingly, the name of Noah meant comfort or rest. His father had foreseen what his life would be like, and in Genesis chapter 5 verse 29 he named him Noah and said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." This what exactly what Noah did. God chose him and spoke to him even before the destruction of the world, warning him and instructing him on what to do, and immediately after the flood God decided to no longer curse the ground for the sake of man. This is really important because in Genesis chapter 3, because of the sin of Adam, the Bible records in verses 17 to 19 to Adam, he said, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat of it, or cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you will return." The curse that God had placed on the ground because of Adam was removed because of Noah. Noah had lived for God in obedience, and it seemed he had learned to worship God. He knew that the right thing to do after the flood was to first build an altar to God and sacrifice to him. This led to God blessing him and his children and also making a covenant with him. It is no mistake that he was from the lineage of Enoch. Noah fulfilled what his father had said of him when he was naming him, and because of him humanity enjoyed comfort from the painful toil of their hands from the land God had cursed. The story of Noah tells us how the obedience of one man could lead to blessings and change situations caused by the disobedience of another man. People had become so wicked to the point that God had to wipe them from the face of the earth because Adam and Eve had first made the mistake of disobeying God and they were cast out of the Garden of Eden. It was the disobedience of Adam and Eve that started the journey that led man to be so evil that God was hurt by the fact that he had made man. Just like Adam and Eve were given an instruction, Noah was also given an instruction. His instruction was to build an ark, and he obeyed. His obedience freed mankind from the curse placed on the ground and saved mankind from being wiped out completely. If Noah had been wicked like the rest of his generation, then he would have died along with them. It was because of him even his sons and their wives were saved. This is similar to the sacrifice of Jesus. The obedience of Jesus to God led to the deliverance of humanity from the suffering of sin and brought them complete salvation and peace with God, so that not only a few people could know God in a generation, but as many as believed in Jesus could know him. Jesus, like Noah, received instructions from God. God had spoken of what he would have to do before his birth through prophecy, and Jesus also obeyed, and through the obedience of Jesus, the result of the disobedience of Adam was removed from those who believed in him. Noah's life signified a new beginning and foreshadowed what Jesus was going to do on earth. Just like Noah started a new generation of humans on the earth, Jesus also started a new generation of people on earth who were no longer bound to the nature of sin but were completely free to follow after him. So what happened to those who were killed in the flood? This is one question that bothers a lot of people. It seemed like a very harsh judgment for them to die physically and to also have their souls lost. The Bible tells us what happened to them in 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 18 to 20, which says, "For Christ died for sins once for all, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to death in the body but made alive by the Spirit, through whom also he went and preached to the spirits in prison who disobeyed long ago when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. In it, only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water. The gospel was also preached to them when Jesus died, and they were able to choose whether to accept the gift of salvation or not. Just like in the days of Noah, a time will come when the earth will be judged again. This would be at the second coming of Christ, when the elect would be taken from the earth, and all that remain would face judgment. Unlike the days of Noah, when Jesus had not yet come and had not yet died and resurrected, our generation would have no excuse, because Jesus had already made the sacrifice for us. The world is dark and people have allowed wickedness in their hearts again, but like Noah, we have to choose to be different in our generation. We have to choose obedience over disobedience and stand for what we believe in. Methuselah lived a very long life, and his life to many looks insignificant because he achieved less than his father. His father, Enoch, only lived for 365 years but had a great walk with God. However, his death was important, even though not many took note of it. His death led to the end of an era, and his death signified the judgment that was to be sent. The death of Methuselah led to a time when the earth suffered judgment by the flood.